I'd seen the brilliant Breaking the Code, play that Derek Jacobi played Alan in, and extraordinary performance. I hadn't actually seen the play, I'd seen the filmed version on telly a few years back, and I think somewhere at school we were definitely taught about him. There'll be science teachers or philosophy teachers, or I don't know, people who have taught me who will be spinning madly if they're watching this, because I'm sure they did mention him and talk about him and the work at Bletchley Park, and his work as the father of the modern computer age. But the amount of detail that Alan's script sort of throws light on, and beyond that, my research did, I didn't fully know his story. And it seems to me extraordinary how few people do in comparison to how important his story is and how integral he is to our lives now and in the 20th century as well. And it was one of the important things I realised, that we had to do a really good job with this, not just for his legacy, but just to broaden that legacy, to bring it to a wider audience, because it is a woefully underknown tale. I think in, well, what was it, 2009 or 7, where Gordon Brown offered the official pardon, and then I say that rushly because I don't really know what the right sentence is for it, and then there's something of mercy that the Queen's pardon's entitled as, and Obama linked him with Darwin and Newton as being three of the most important scientific minds ever to have come from Britain, in the world even. His profile rose, not that that's actually a sort of a safe way of quantifying his importance scientifically. That's often skewed, a public profile or fame is nothing to do with actually what the integrity and importance of your work is to do with. But I think it just brought him into the national conscience a little bit. And then in his centenary, there were a lot of exhibitions, fantastic one at the Science Museum. And so I think it's been on the rise, and hopefully this film will be some kind of culmination of that, but hopefully just also another stepping block to people continue. I mean, why he isn't on the front cover of textbooks, why he isn't on a banknote with, I was going to say Charles Babbage, not Charles Babbage, but Lovelace. And, Ada Lovelace, who was reportedly the original computer programmer, the first person to ever invent cryptography. He's a hugely culturally important people, and not only what he achieved as a scientist, but what he endured in his life, what he did for his nation, and how his nation repaid him for his difference to their status quo, is the tragedy. So I really hope that this film, as much as it did for me, gives to other people an intriguing introduction to him, and is a base to develop a further understanding of him. Very important man. Well, I think it's kind of endearing because he does. It's not done. It's not done wittingly, really, with him, especially with Dennison at the beginning. That interview, he had a very almost perverse but accurate, literal interpretation of language. So, for example, when he's asked, do you have any idea how many, after he's already pissed Dennison off and it looks like the interview's going down the hole and it's all over, and why is this guy wasting Dennison's time? And he asks him, do you know how many other people have applied for this post? And he goes, no. And he's actually, no, as in, no, do tell me. But it's a rhetorical question, meaning, so those things of misinterpretation, I found really endearing, because this is a man who has been forced through circumstance to work in isolation, to be isolated as an outsider, to be categorized as being different from a very, very early age. Before our film story, he was in foster care until the age of 4, and that's when his stammer developed. And at school, how in that era a boy with a stammer could have got anything like empathy from schoolmates is beyond imagination. These were pretty barbaric times at boarding schools, let alone if you had a speech impediment. And I think that just compounded who he was, compounded how outside he was. So I just really wanted to show the progression of that, and the beauty of Alan's script is you meet him fully formed, so to speak, in our version. The main chunk of the story is at Bletchley Park, and then you have a recounting of one of the most, if not the most influential moment in his life, in his adolescence, this meeting of Christopher Morcom. He's falling in love with this boy who's untimely ripped from his side by bovine tuberculosis, and you see that that's the motivation for his work ethic. He wants to be better than Christopher, as is borne out by all the letters he wrote to Christopher's mum after Christopher's death. That was his primary motivation. He became a better student, he became a better scientist. You see him understanding what a secret language is, what a shared secret is, what love is, what intimacy is. And you also see him having to protect himself and shut down from showing those emotions publicly, and what that costs him. And then you are back into the mindset of the Alan that we then get to know both in the Bletchley Park era in the 50s when he's being interviewed and prosecuted for his homosexuality. So as long as those stepping stones were there, I was satisfied that, you know, he wouldn't, you'd understand him as someone who was conditioned rather than just arrived as an odd duck, to use his mother's phrase. And that makes him far more relatable, I think. And yes, we celebrate his difference, but also it's a warning to treat people who are different the same, because ultimately we all are. You know, he was somebody who was as involved and as passionate about love and life and freedom as any of the rest of us, and was persecuted for his understanding of that.